This is some foolishness. Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. How you guys doing? What's up, Robert? Carolyn, Alicia, Tanika, Tracy, Latonya Miles. When I tell you I have had an eventful weekend, I have had an eventful weekend. It's been like 3 days since I talked to you guys. I don't even know where to begin. This is what a candlelight dinner would be like. Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, I guess you can see me, but I can't really see myself. No, there's no flooding. Not where I am anyway, that I'm aware of. So I have so much to say. I really do. Like, so Carolyn and Taniki, I'm in the dark because that bitch Irma came in town. Oh, Robert, you were waiting all weekend? So, yeah, like she came in town late last night, early this morning. And, I had gone grocery shopping. I'm going to come back to that though. I had gone grocery shopping on Saturday. And I came back. I mean, so I had everything all unpacked and everything. So today, I get up. I think you guys saw the post that I said, about my mom, how she called me this morning at 7:51 a.m. and woke me up. Now, normally, I turn my phone off at night because I don't want to be interrupted. And people always say, well, what if somebody dies? Like, you won't get the phone call. Well, they'll be dead in the morning when I wake up. Why do I need to disturb my sleep? And see, most of my family at this time were all living in Maryland. So I was the only one living in Georgia. So if somebody called me at 3 in the morning and said, oh, such and such died, what the fuck could I really do except be up all night? Yeah, let me sleep. Because I ain't going to be able to get on the flight. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I ain't going to be able to get on the flight till the next day, no way. So I always cut my ringers off. Well, somehow I forgot to cut my ringers off last night, and she come calling me. But I posted about that earlier. And she come calling me, and I called her back. It just woke me completely up. So I finally went back to sleep. Got up finally around 12ish. Came in here to eat. Now, I'm starting this vegan thing. And so I had all my food. And I started with just like a bowl of cereal with almond milk. Of course, I don't drink regular milk. I stopped drinking that about 6 months ago. And so I had like a little nice little healthy cereal, and it's like oats and shit, like little clusters, and it has dried cranberries in it. Really good. So I'm eating that. So I'm just piddling around the house doing whatever the hell I do. So then I go and have my little snack. Because, you know, when you on this vegan shit, you hungry like every 2 hours. So I go eat my next little meal. So I come into the living room. I'm sitting in the living room now. And the lights and shit start flickering. But just like a little flicker. In fact, it flickered when I was in the kitchen making my breakfast. So it flicked, and then it came. I was like, oh, okay. Because it's raining at this point. It's raining. So I made my little breakfast, came in here, got all set up, had my little hot tea. Because I bought me some organic teas when I was out this weekend. I bought like this white, ginger, peach. I bought like 3 different ones. And so I'm sitting there with my hot tea. I'm all on the couch. I got Insecure on. So the internet is buffering and shit. So it buffers. And so I paused it, let it kind of catch up. So then I started it over. Next thing I know, I'm halfway through the show. Not even half. I'm just almost halfway through the show. And the shit just, everything just cuts off. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it'll just be a few minutes. So I kind of get up, make a phone call. You know, I'm thinking like shit can be okay. Well, that was about 2:30 this afternoon. I'm on Eastern time. So that nasty bitch Irma got me in here in the dark, unable to make anything else to eat. So I'm in this bitch scrounging for food like a little squirrel. I'm eating pistachios and shit. I'm eating pistachios and trail mix. Because it ain't shit. I mean, I can't make shit that I bought. I bought couscous. I can't turn on the stove. I'm sitting under all of these candles like I'm at a goddamn seance. Look at this shit. I got candles in here. I got candles in there. I got candles in the back. I just want to know if she's going to reimburse me. This bitch Irma. And then for all of the Florida people that brought your asses up here and clogged up our highways and shit, y'all motherfuckers better stay here until this. Y'all better ride it out with us. I better not see y'all getting on the highway to leave. Y'all done ran up here. Y'all done ran right into the damn storm. And it just don't make no damn sense. I mean, I'm glad it's not hot because like the air is not on. All you hear is the clock ticking, and that's because there's a battery. It's a battery-operated clock up there on the wall. All right, so we're going to talk about the podcast. I hope you guys listen to the podcast today. But we're not going to talk about that yet because I got some other shit to say. I ain't talked to y'all since Friday, so I have plenty of shit to say. So let me go back to Friday. So Friday, was that Friday? No, that was Saturday. Let me go to Saturday. So Saturday, my friend Angela and I went to the park and we went running. So we ran for 2 miles. And then we left the park and went into the gym. So like we ran from the gym through the park, back to the gym, and then we went inside the gym and we lifted weights. So that was Saturday. So then we went to her house and she made us something to eat. So she did like crab legs, she did shrimp, she did corn, just kind of like a little seafood broil. So my greedy ass needed something to eat before that. So she made me a smoothie first. So I drank down the smoothie. And then of course she's switching over to vegan too. So she had like this bean. It was like mixed beans. Like she put them in a crock pot or something. She had all these a variety of different beans. So I ate that. She was like, Craig, you're not going to be able to eat because, like, you're going to be full. I said, no, the fuck, I'm not. So I ate the whole plate of beans. And then shortly after I was done with the beans, here she come with my plate of seafood. So I ate that. So I had to get out of there because I had a podcast I was taping. I know some of you were asking me about a podcast about Marika. Really, you miss us jogging together? I don't think I've ever seen you run in all of my days. So I had to get home because I was taping a podcast about gay adoption. So that show is coming up. It's going to be September 25th. So those of you who are really interested in that, you all should be subscribed to the podcast. But it's going to be September 25th. It was really good, and in fact, I have a bunch of podcasts that were supposed to come before that one, but it was so interesting that I pushed it up. So that one is going to be September 25th. So I had to get here to tape that. So I got in here, taped that. And then I went back to Angela's house. Hadn't had a shower yet. I hadn't been to the gym, went running in the park. But I told y'all, some people like it a little salty, a little musty, a little peppery. Not that I was going to do anything with anybody, because I wasn't. But, you know, I was going to pick her up because we were going to the grocery store so we could get, you know, because I hadn't been to the grocery store since last month because I was trying to wipe out all of the meats and shit that I had in my house. So I was going to the grocery store. So she was like, well, pick me up, I'll go. So I went and scooped her up. We started at Trader Joe's. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So we get to Trader Joe's. I'm minding my business. We walk around the store. We're just kind of exploring. Because I've never really looked for vegan stuff. And I got like a list of shit that I'm looking for. Like, what am I going to use for like my butter? So I found like a butter. It's a vegan butter, and it actually tastes like real butter. So I had like lists of shit that I was going to use. And I've always been cooking with olive oil. I didn't got away from Crisco like most black people, still using Crisco with the little can on your stove. So I haven't used that. I've been using olive oil for years. So I'm good with that, but I am going to start using avocado oil because it's even better than olive oil. But that bitch is expensive. Avocado oil is expensive. So we're in Trader Joe's. So I see this guy that I went to college with. Y'all ready for this shit? Watch this. So I'm looking, you know, you looking at a motherfucker, and he had on a baseball cap, and I was kind of like at an angle. So I was like kind of like behind him, but still kind of like beside him. And so I'm like, damn, that looks like him. But I didn't know his name. And so did y'all see that light? There's some headlights out there. I have a window over here. So like I hope they keep their lights on because then I got some light in here. See how I lit up. But anyway, I'm looking like, damn, that looks like him, but I didn't know his name. And then I didn't feel like, you know how you see somebody like, first of all, we were in Trader Joe's. I had to go to Whole Foods after that. And then I was going to Kroger after that. And Trader Joe's and Whole Foods both closed at 10 o'clock. So I didn't really have time for all of the niceties and be like, oh, hey, yeah, we went to Hampton. Because I didn't know if he was going to remember me and all of that. I kind of figured he would, though. So anyway, I didn't speak. So I just went on and kept buying my stuff, right? Because I was on a time frame. I had to get to the next store. So me and Angela and I are down at this other aisle. And so he comes up. Hey, what's up, Craig? And I turned around. And I said, hey, again, I don't know his name. I'm like, hey, how you doing? He said, oh, I almost said his name. Thank God I didn't. Oh, God, I'm glad I didn't say that man's name. That would have been tragic. I wouldn't have been able to tell you the story. I would have just not told you the story. He said his full name. I said, yeah, we went to Hampton together. I remember you. And so, Alicia, you said I'm unforgettable. Unforgettable. Oh, and I got to tell you about getting blocked by Facebook, too. I knew it was something else I had to tell you. I had a lot of shit going on this weekend. So he, I said, hey, what's up? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So we chit-chat. So he goes on to tell me that he just moved back here. He's from here. He just moved back here from, I'm not going to tell you from where. See, that's the thing, the dangerous thing about this damn Facebook Live. You got to censor as you go. So he tells me he's been overseas working. And he just came back like 2 months ago. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So he goes on to say, yeah, like I'm kind of experiencing a culture shock because I was kind of like the only black person over there. And, I'm back in Atlanta, whatever. He said, so I'm kind of like looking for my my people, so to speak. I'm saying that. That ain't what he said. But he was like, I'm kind of looking for my place, you know. And I was like, oh, yeah, I get that. I said, well, listen, I'll hit you on Facebook. And I'll send you my information. Don't even ask me why I didn't just get a man my number when I was standing there. I could have just been like, here's my number, take my number. But he had his bag and shit. But I could have, I mean, he had a basket full of shit. But I mean, I could have just been like, well, give me your number, let me put it in. But again, I was in a zone. I was trying to get to the next store. So I said, I'll hit you on Facebook. So I sent him a message on Facebook. He said, but yeah, because definitely I'm trying to connect. I'm like, yeah, I just hit you on Facebook. I was like, okay, cool. So Angela and I, we leave, we go get in the car. And so my spirit, I always tell you about your spirit. My spirit was like, it's something there. So we go into the next store. We go to Whole Foods. We kind of look around the store, but Whole Foods high as fuck. So then we go on over to Kroger. Go to Kroger, and that's where I get most of my shit. So I go over there, get my stuff. Y'all from Florida then came up here and cleaned off our shelves. So all of you people that went to the grocery store and bought all these groceries, and now your power's out, I hope the shit spoil. I don't really hope your stuff spoil, but that's what you get. So anyway, I wonder if the Department of Department of Human and Children's Services will reimburse me if my food in the refrigerator spoils. You know they sometimes do that. So anyway, but I think you got to be on food stamps to do that. But anyway, so the next day, Angela and I, well, no. So I get home. I'm making me a dish in my crock pot and shit. So I'm making a dish in my crock pot. I done bought all these peppers. I got red peppers, yellow peppers, orange peppers, green peppers, and onion. And I'm cutting all my shit up. Put it in the, I had bay leaves. I put all that shit in a crock pot with red lentil, green lentil, black beans, just a bunch of shit, right? Because I'm on my vegan shit now, my pescatarian, because I'm going to still eat seafood. So I'm getting my shit going. I'm seasoning it up. So I'm putting the beans in for overnight, right? So I got my music and shit going. And I'm feeling good about myself and shit. And so I had bought this fake meat. It's like ground beef, right? By Beyond Meat. And I'm looking at that shit like, am I really going to try this tonight? But I started getting hungry. So I diced up some of my onions, some of my peppers, all of the peppers that I told you, all of the colors. Put them in a pan with a little bit of oil. And I'm sauteing and shit. I put a little salt, pepper in there, and I'm sauteing my veggies and shit. I put this Beyond Meat ground beef in there, which is really like pea protein. It's pea, like green pea. So it's like a pea protein. But it's brown. It looked like little chunks of ground beef. So I put the shit in the pan. I saute it up. And I got me some flatbread because pita has milk in it. And remember, I don't drink milk. So I'm on my pita shit. And I put it all in a little thing. And I roll it up and I'm biting it. And bitch, it was good. I fucked it up. So I'm eating that. And so I realized that the dude from the Trader Joe's then sent me a message on Facebook. But by the time I saw it, like 2 hours passed. So at this point, it's almost 1 o'clock a.m. So of course, so at this point, he didn't message me with his phone number and said, hey, definitely I want to try to connect. You know, I just really need to find my center here in Atlanta. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I replied to his message. I didn't text him because it was 1 in the morning. And so the next day, Sunday, Angela and I are out running another 2 miles, right? And we're going to the gym again. So while we're running, my phone rings. I'm listening to my music and shit running. And the phone rings, and it's him. He's like, oh, you sound like you're running. I said, yeah, I am. And I said, I'll give you a call like when I'm done. Give me about an hour. So I call him back. He had Trader Joe's again, but he had a different Trader Joe. And for all of you people that's hating on us, that's trying to go to a plant-based diet, let me tell you what he said to me when we were in Whole Foods. I mean, we were in Trader Joe's. He said that he was experiencing stomach problems. He was having all these aches and pains in his shit, in his stomach. And he went on to that plant-based diet. And He said the stomach problems went away and his stomach went down. How about that? So anyway, I call him back. He had Trader Joe's, but he had another Trader Joe's. And so we talked for an hour. So he starts by telling me about how he had moved to this other country for work, and how long story short, the man is into other men, okay? And he's always had girlfriends. He didn't really have a first experience until he was in his 30s. And he was getting it in with these foreign men. I ain't gonna tell you what country he was in. And but then he even went on to say, and these are his words, he even said that he fell in love with a lady boy. A lady boy. But he was so forthcoming. No shame, no nothing. And he said, I'm telling you, it was nothing. He said, I was so happy to have run into you in the store. And I'm like, well, what am I, the poster child for gay people? I'm like, what? So we talked on the phone for like an hour. I'm going to really try to get him to come on to the podcast. Now, I don't know if he's really there yet. So he's still sitting at the I done came home. I done put my groceries away. And he was still sitting at the Trader Joe's. And so I said, well, listen, I just got to the house. I said, I'm not going back out. I said, if you want to stop by, you can. Because he was still sitting in the parking lot at the Trader Joe's. So he said, yes, shoot me your address. I'll come by. A lady boy is a trans girl. So a boy who changes over to a girl. So he was a lady boy. And so he comes by, and he got to my house at 6 o'clock. He did not leave until 11. When I tell you he gave me his entire story, I'm just going to give you some sprinkles of it, because I'm going to tell you, I really want him to come onto this podcast. Now, I don't know if he is, and if he doesn't, I'll just come back another day and tell you the rest of the story, what I leave out. But he had always dated girls, dated women, never had any type of attraction to men or boys or anything like that. So what had happened was he was at one point really trying to make moves in his career. And I'm going to really leave this part vague because I don't want y'all trying to guess who it is. Not that you would, but he was trying to make inroads into his career. And so he was probably like 30 or whatever at the time. And this white guy, he was talking to this white guy, and the white guy was like, oh, yeah, I have contacts to this person and that person. And he was saying that it was sounding really legitimate. And that the man was just going on and about, I have all of the people's contact information in a phone book at my house. You want to follow me? You know where I'm going with this. You want to follow me to my house? So he said, yeah, that's cool. So the white man pulls over. Doesn't drive to his house. He pulls over into a parking lot. And so they get out the car. And he says the white man has his hands like in his pockets, right? And so he has his hand in his pocket. And he's like standing close to the guy that I went to college with. And the guy's trying to put his leg against my college friend's leg. And he was just like, so what's up with the book? Like, what's up with the information? Next thing you know, the white man is sucking his dick, okay? So, in the parking lot. And so after he zipped up and, everything, he says to the white man, so what's up with the book? Like, what's up with the contacts? Can we still... He was serious about that contact. So the white man says, oh, yeah, come on, let's follow me. Follow me. It's not far from here. The white man gets in the car. The boy is following him. The white man speeds off. He ducking and dodging through traffic and shit, trying to lose the guy. And eventually he lost him. So he said he felt stupid. He still didn't make the connection like, okay, I may be at least bisexual. Like he wasn't thinking anything like that. So what ended up happening was 5 years passed. 5. He's now living in another state. I'm not going to where he lived. So he's driving down the street, and this white guy's just on him. White guy keep looking over. You know how you pulling up to a light, and every time you pull up to the light, the same car is beside you? Well, the same kind of situation was happening. So this white guy kept looking over at him. So he finally get to another light, and the white guy looks over and says, "You trying to get your dick sucked?" You want your dick sucked? And he says, "Yeah." And he said in that moment, he was like, "What are you doing? Like, what? What the fuck?" So the white man says, "Follow me. It's not far from here." He takes the boy to his house. He says he gets to the house. Now, he's telling me all of this once he's here at my house. He said he gets to the house, and it's a nice house. The guy works on I was about to tell you. Anyway, the guy has a great job. The man is married. He sees pictures of the family up on the mantle when they come into the house. The man leads him to the bedroom, and my friend from college says, no, let's sit in the living room. So he goes to the living room. So he's looking at all the pictures. He's just observing, right? And the man starts sucking his dick. I'm skipping little minor details, but if I was writing this in a book, bitch, it would be really, really detailed. So here's the piece I was about to skip, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you so you know what kind of details I'm skipping. So, of course, he's never really been with a guy other than the time when the man in the parking lot sucked his dick. So he's sitting there, and he reaches down, the guy that I went to college with, reaches down to touch the white man's dick, and it wasn't hard. So he kind of got grossed out. He let it go. So he's just really in his mind. Like everything is just hypersensitive, and it's really elevated, and just, his sensories are up. So, they get done. And so he sit there and talks to the white man, and he says to the man, "So am I gay?" And the guy says, no, you can be whatever you want to be like that. And so then he asked the white man, well, clearly you're married. And he was like, "Man, listen, I just like to have a lot of sex." But I couldn't help but think, here this white woman at work, and her husband, they met some black man riding down the street, yelling. This woman don't have no clue that her man likes sucking dick. That he yelling out of random cars, asking people to suck it if he wanted his dick sucked. And so my point is, if he's done this one time with him, this ain't the first time. So you going around sucking random dick, and then you coming home after I done came from work, and you kissing me in my mouth? So anyway, my college friend says to him, "So what? I mean, why are you doing this?" And he was just like, "Because listen, I like a lot of sex and da-da-da-da." And so he said, "Well, when did this begin for you?" And so the white guy tells him, this happened when I was in college. He said he was on a sports team, I think a football team. And here's another thing. Football players are notorious. And I'm not trying to say that they're the only ones, but I'm just saying. So he said, the white guy said he was on a football team. He said, and it was him and another guy that were always in the locker room together, putting away equipment or doing something. And so he said this man used to fuck, these were his words, he used to fuck the shit out of me. This is what the white man told my college friend. And he said that's when it started. And so, but I just feel like in order for you to engage in that, you have to have some sort of proclivities already. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're not aware of them. So this is the second experience that my college friend has had. So after that happened, he got a girlfriend. My college friend has a girlfriend. They're in a relationship. Da-da-da-da-da. Long story short, they broke up because he was going overseas to work. Well, that was part of the reason why they broke up. But she was aware of the man sucking his dick in the parking lot, but she was not aware of the man whose house he was in. They weren't together when that happened, but I guess they started talking about past stuff or whatever. And he told her about it. And she was one of those women. I talk about this in the second book. And I think we've talked about it on here. there is a crop of women that are either A, lonely, or so emotionally needy that they don't give a fuck about that. Oh, okay, it's in the past, right? You done, and they okay with it. And they gonna move on. Well, she was the same way. Oh, it was just that one time. Oh, okay, well that's fine. And so she was okay with it. But then they started going to counseling because they were having some other issues, right? So he told her, I'll go to counseling only if you find me a black male doctor. So she found a black male doctor. They're going, so they were going into sessions together. Then there were sessions where he would go by himself. Then there were sessions she would go by herself, and then they'd come back together. So in one of the sessions, he told the doctor about the second guy whose house he was in. So then when they came back together, she found out about that. So she crying in all the pieces. Mind you, she looking up shit online to tell him that he wasn't bisexual or that he wasn't gay. She said, "Oh no, you just, what does she call it?" Because she found out like straight men who may have had their dick sucked or had an oral experience or watched gay porn or whatever. She told him, "You just have a fetish." That's what she told him after she looked it up online. So she was secure. She just wanted something just to kind of give herself peace. So when she found out about the second guy in college, the second guy whose house he was in, she was all to pieces, but they worked it out or whatever. They broke up for some other reason because she found out about some other girl he was dealing with. But you were okay with? Okay. So, yeah, how he doing? So, at this point, he's now watching bisexual porn. She's aware that he watches bisexual porn. And then it transitions from bisexual porn to just straight up gay porn. And so this is around the time she looking up and saying, "Oh no, you just have a fetish. That don't mean nothing." So they end up breaking up, like I said, because she found out about some girl he was dealing with. So once he got overseas, that's when they broke up because she had come to visit him because they were going to try to make it work. Now, mind you, he was on the other side of the world, so I don't know how they thought that was going to work. So when she got over there, that's when she found out about this other woman. So they broke up. So while he overseas, that's when he really starts to explore his sexuality because he's away from family, friends. He doesn't know anybody. He's the only black person pretty much in every space he go in. So he is just like the cat's pajamas. He said sometimes his orgies, 4 and 5 guys a night. Just a mess. No judgment though. And so that was it. So then here he comes, fast forward to the day I run into his ass at the Trader Joe's. Now, mind you, he's been here for 2 months. So he sits in my dining room and told me that just before he saw me at the Trader Joe's, he had just hooked up with a Mexican guy that he ran into. And he said it was really bad. He said, but he just was so horny that he had to get that nut off. So, and I'm just like, damn. And I understand that. It's not a judgment because I have been there where you have just done something really lewd and lascivious and something that you really aren't proud of. And then you go mingle with your family or one of your friends or some shit. And I don't know about y'all, because I know y'all are all saved in here. But I know like there have been times where I'm looking at them like, if you only knew what the fuck I just finished doing, if you only knew where I just came from. Amen. And so thank God for deliverance. Amen. Not deliverance. Let me take that back because see, some of y'all think I'm talking about church and you can be delivered from being gay. Good luck and good night. That ain't what I mean. I'm just saying good luck for clarity. But yeah, so I understood. But he was talking about how he frequents the bathhouse here. He was just at the bathhouse the other week, like 2 weeks ago. He frequented the strip clubs because he has no outlet. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's why when you see the news and you hear about a congressman or a priest or a minister or somebody in an airport bathroom propositioning somebody in a public restroom, it's usually because they're living a straight life. They're living a straight lifestyle. Now, in that instance, I'm going to use the word lifestyle because in here, you know you're gay. You're living a lifestyle. You're practicing being straight. So that's a lifestyle. Being gay is not a lifestyle because you're gay. You're not practicing. It's not something that you do. That's just a part of who you are. But if you're gay and you're living the straight lifestyle, then you're practicing being straight. Amen? I think y'all picking up what I'm putting down. So you're living this straight identified lifestyle and you have no outlet for your sexual proclivity. So that's why you see some of these married men and you wonder like, well, why was he dumb enough to, like George Michael. Remember many years ago before George Michael died, remember he got caught in that bathroom out there in Beverly Hills, propositioning that cop. And then it happened again over in London. He was cruising. And he was at the height of his career. And you look at a person like that like, what the fuck was he thinking? But they don't think because it's like you're just looking for that outlet. You're looking for that release. And if you are living this straight lifestyle, you don't have any gay friends. You don't move in any gay circles. You don't have gay interaction in terms of sex. So if you just happen to be walking through an airport and you lock eyes with somebody and it's like, oh, bitch, let's go in this bathroom and get it in. Or you walking through a park, you know what I'm saying? You just, you risk it all. So this is what he was doing or what he's been doing because nobody knows he's gay. And everybody else is, I didn't even think he was, like even in college. And so he sat in here and he said to me, he said, Craig, I don't know if I'm gay or if I'm bisexual. He said, one of my friends told me, because he just told one person. And he said, I don't know actually he's told like 3 people. And so he's like, I don't know if I'm gay or if I'm bisexual. He said, either way, I don't care. He said, I'm comfortable with who I am. So that's a beautiful thing. And then he went on to say, one of his friends told him, no, I think you're gay. He said, you're just on the transition. And I think we talked about this last week when I told you, oftentimes people like to choose bisexual because it's in vogue to be able to say that you still have attraction to women or you still have sex with women. It's not as taboo as being gay. But I said to you guys, most of us who've dated women were bisexual at one point because you're sliding over to, to the gay side. Amen? So he said, but either way, I don't care. I'm just trying to feel this thing out. But here's what I want to get to, as if that wasn't enough. He said he's unpacked, and he was really literally unpacking shit sitting at my dining room table because I could see his mind just working. Like there were things that he hadn't even thought about really in years. But you know how sometimes when you're telling somebody something, you're hearing it for the first time yourself and you're really having epiphany after epiphany. So that I could see that was happening. And he was just like, wow, I hadn't thought about this in years. But he said, but I really think that all of this can be tied back to my dad. His parents are still living. They're like in their 70s. I said, what do you mean? He said, because I told you he grew up here in Atlanta. He said, because it never failed. Whenever my dad and I were in the car and we were driving down 85, he always looked over at Flex. And for those of you who don't know, Flex is the bathhouse. I've never been. Again, it's not a judgment. I just know what it is. And so he said his dad always would look over there. And I said, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, that could just be a fucking coincidence. You know what I'm saying? Because it's literally right off the highway. So, I mean, and then who's to say he was looking at that? Because there's other shit over there off of the highway. But then here it is. He said, and it made him think back to when he was younger and he went to his dad's office. And his dad was like, just take a seat and get on my computer. You know where I'm going. Get on my computer. Because I'm in a meeting. So he gets on the computer. Daddy looking at big dicks and big dick websites. And so he never said anything. Now, mind you, he's carrying this all of these years. It will be kind of like how, and I don't know if you guys watch or keep up with the Kardashians, but I remember seeing something where Kim Kardashian was saying that years ago, like when she was a teenager, she remembers walking in on Bruce dressed up like a woman. And then she ran in the house and ran upstairs and never said anything. So it would kind of be like that. So he kept this secret. He never told anybody. And so then fast forward, he like in high school, and he taking the trash out at home, right? He grabs his dad's coat and puts on the coat to take the trash out. He is telling me all of this shit. Like I'm so engrossed in the story. Like I wanted to hook his ass up to the microphone so this could just be a podcast. And I said, I really want you to talk about this on my podcast. And he just kind of like looked and smiled. I'm like, bitch, I'm serious. Get on this microphone. But I didn't want to be insensitive. Because it's not about me just putting him out there to hear, but I really think that this will help people. You know what I'm saying? Everything that I do it so that it will help people. Give other people clarity. Because think about it. This man has been walking around for 30 some years of his life, frustrated, and really carrying all of this, because he said that. I'm going to segue. I'm going to come back to the coat. I like to leave y'all hanging off the cliff sometimes. I'm going to come back to the coat. But he had told me that he had all of this pent-up aggression. He was a teacher, and he was teaching all these inner city black kids. And he felt like he wanted to do that because he felt like he had something to offer and could really, these kids could really benefit. But he felt like these kids didn't really appreciate what they had in him as a teacher. And he felt like they were taking him for granted and they weren't really, so he would be really angry with them. He said he was so aggressive. And I said to him when he was telling me this, I said, part of that aggression was probably this pent up stuff that you wouldn't deal with. Because even though he had never acted on it and he said he had never thought about sexuality in that way, sometimes things are present in a subconscious level, on a subconscious level. So you may not even be aware of it. So that's what I'm saying. As he was sitting there unlocking shit, a lot of revelations were coming to him. So back to the coat. So he's taking the trash out one night. He grabs his father's coat, takes out the trash. And his father sees him coming back in. He said, what the hell is wrong with you? Why you got on my goddamn coat? He said, that's a cashmere coat. You don't wear no cashmere coat to take out no damn trash. And he said, he looking at him like, the fuck is he going off for? I just put on this coat to take the trash out, right? And so he said, something going on with that coat. So he said about 1 something in the morning, he got up. I think he even said he set the clock and got up and went and dug in that coat. Guess what was in the coat? I'm cueing the Jeopardy music. Do 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 do. I love to leave y'all hanging. Oh God. In the coat pocket. Y'all ready? There's some good guesses, but no. In the coat pocket was a David magazine, which is a gay magazine. It's an Atlanta magazine. And he saw this David magazine. And he put it back in there, of course. And he said to me, he said, my father has been really aggressive and has demonstrated aggression. And he said, and I'm wondering if it's because of all these years he's not lived his truth. And he said, I'm debating with whether or not I want to have this conversation with my dad and tell him, even if I tell him about myself, I'm wondering if I'm going to tell him about all of this stuff that he's known about his own father. Isn't this shit made for TV? And see, this is the thing, black people. We got to let this shit go with this sexuality. Like, people dying inside because, we got this tradition, this religious tradition. And this is why I said I separate spirituality from church and religion. We got folks that just dying inside, and they not living their truth because we telling them what they supposed to do. And we got to remember, everything that we know about this religion, it comes from white people. And now I'm not telling you not to believe in God, because I'm going to tell you, I believe in God. I get on my knees every night and pray. But that religion component, that's all about control. And like I told you before, white folks use religion to control black folks. Now you got black folks using religion to control other black people. Y'all in there giving y'all laughs in these church services and carrying on. Child, good night. So I'm real comfortable with y'all now. So he was like, I'm not interested in breaking up my family. So again, that leads me to believe that the parents are still together. He said, but I don't want my father to leave this earth not knowing who he really was, who he really is. He said, and part of me wanting to tell my family is because I want them to know who I am. I want them to know, before they leave here, I want them to know who their son was. And that's what's important about coming out. All of you that may be closeted, who may get your hands on this video, you're not coming out to be walking around carrying a flag, okay? Nobody's asking, they don't need nobody else in the parade. You ain't got to ever walk in a parade, amen? You're coming out so that the people who know you and love you can know the full you, because if you die today, they can't really say they knew you. So I just found it fascinating, but he just kept saying, he just, even at the table, he was like, he sat at this table. I'm telling you, I had to piss. I had to pee so badly. I didn't want to leave the story. Okay? And we were just having cocktails. I was sitting on the opposite side of the table, and I had my little vegan dish. And I was like, you want some of my beans? He's like, no, I'm good. But you know how when you get this weight off of your shoulders, like when you may be hungry. Because we ended up having 3 cocktails apiece, and I had to pee. So I'm sure he probably had to pee. But you know, when something is really on your heart and it's heavy, and you finally have that release, you can sit and talk for hours. Because I'm telling you, we had talked on the phone for about an hour. And then he came over here and sat and talked for 5 hours. So it was like, just imagine all of that finally being able to be released. And so I made another cocktail. After the second one, he said, no, I'm good. I don't need another one. So, you know, by then I'm eating more stuff. By then I done pulled out my little trail mix that I had bought. So we eating trail mix at the table now. And so, you know, the trail mix then sucked up my little alcohol that I had. I said, well, I'm about to get me another one. He said, okay, you can make me another one. So I made him another one. I said, all right, well, since you're going to get another one, let me use the restroom. So I went and peed, came back, and we just continued dialoguing. And, I mean, he just really wanted clarity. He really wanted answers. But one of the things he said to me, and I can understand and I can relate, because it happened with me similarly. He said, one of the things that I'm so grateful for, Craig, is that I didn't start having these experiences until I was older, because I'm much more grounded. Not that Yanla Craig Zan is Gay Yanla Van Zan. I'm Gay Yanla Van Zan. And so he was just saying how because he was older, he's a lot more grounded and he's not easily swayed. And so I had said to him, I said, I completely understand that, because when I came here to Atlanta, I was 22. So I didn't come here as an 18-year-old for college. I had already been through college. I had already still at 22, you're not a full-ass adult, but you're not an 18-year-old that's just going to college either. You know what I'm saying? When you're 18 and you're going to college and you're away from home for the first time, you're impressionable. You can be easily swayed. You can be easily peer pressured and talked into shit. But I had been away from home before. I had been to France for an exchange program in high school, and then I went again the summer before I went away to college. So I had been away from home. So when I got to Hampton as an 18-year-old, I wasn't easily beguiled. And so by the time I moved to Atlanta, and I was 22 and just starting to experiment in this whole gay thing and trying to understand my feelings and shit, I wasn't easily swayed. But what I said to him was, oftentimes, I've seen so many young guys move here for college. Morehouse, Clark, Georgia State, wherever. And they get down here and they get lost on the gay scene. They lose their degree to the nightclub. That's a line from my stage play, A Day in the Life. They get I said to my friend Angela the other day, now don't get sensitive, gay people. Don't get sensitive, gay people, with what I'm about to say. I'm just joking. But I said to my friend Angela, I said, you know, so many of these young kids move to Atlanta for college, and instead of them getting a college degree, they get a degree in fagology. Because they at the club every single night. They at the club every night. They dating. They ain't been to nobody's class. I've seen so many young boys just get lost. And in my first book, I talk about a guy that I was close to as a friend. And no, I'm not attracted to him. And see, that was the other thing I said to him. I'll come back to the guy I was talking about. I was saying to him, I said, just because, I said, one of the things that I struggled with when I first came into this community was trying to decipher who should be a friend and who should be a date, who should be a fuck buddy, who should be a friend. And I said, because when you're on this side of it, you're all males or you're all females if you're lesbian. And so it's trying to decipher, well, who should be a friend, who should I fuck? Because you're attracted to so many people. So it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just fuck. So I said to him, I said, you know, try to be clear about who should be a friend and who you should. So I just want to be a friend to him. But back to what I was saying. So when I first came to Atlanta, I was really good friends, and I write about this in my first book. The Leslie character, for you, those of you who read the book, the first book, there's a character in my first book. His name is Leslie. And I met him at this club here called Tracks. It used to be downtown across from where the aquarium is now. And I was coming down the stairs and he was coming up the stairs. And he had on like this little hat and it was pulled down over his eyes. And it was just like this mystery to it. And so I said something to him because, you know, I'm the kind of motherfucker, I'm going to say what the fuck I want to you if I'm interested. I told y'all before, you can't be waiting for somebody to come up to you. You got to go after what you want. Amen. So I said what I wanted. And so we exchanged numbers. So long story short, we had become friends, me and this guy, Leslie. And so we talking on the phone and shit. But he was trying to push up. And of course, I had met him. We had met under the auspices of dating. Because I did approach him, you know. But then as we were talking on the phone, see, this is why there's a beauty in taking your time, amen? There's something really sweet about gradual, about not fucking day one and day two. No judgment, because I've done that too. But what I'm saying is there's something really sweet about gradual. And so we talking on the phone and shit, and he always trying to bring the shit to fucking on the phone and all that kind of shit. And so I just wasn't feeling it because I was paying attention to my instincts, right? I was learning more to pay closer attention to my instincts. And my instincts were telling me, that ain't why you met him. And so hold on to your, you know. So one day we were on the phone. Now remember, this is Craig back in 1998. So for all of the politically correct people, don't come at me with the messages and stuff. So back in 1998, I was 22, and this is when I met this guy, Leslie. And so I was very naive when it came to HIV and AIDS. I didn't really know there was a difference between the two. Most people probably didn't because, again, this was 1998. And so I would use HIV and AIDS interchangeably. Now, we all know that there's a difference between the two, right? HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. And so I was using the acronyms, you know, interchangeably. And so I don't know how somehow we got on the subject of HIV. And I just said to him on the phone in jest, I said, well, what, you got AIDS? And just kind of laughed. I just laughed. And he paused, just like I just did. He paused. The phone just got silent. And you know how you laughing and shit, and then it starts feeling awkward and shit? It starts feeling awkward because you just sitting and you don't hear nothing on the other end. And I'm like, hello? And he was like, yeah, I'm here. He said, and no, I don't have AIDS. I have HIV. And that was when I learned the difference between the two, right? And so there was a piece of me that said there was a reason that you were holding on to your instincts. And again, that is not to imply that you shouldn't date somebody HIV positive, because if you've read the first book, I write in detail about someone that I was involved with that was HIV positive. So I knew there was a bigger purpose for him in my life. But it was a blessing and a curse being friends with him, because, and I was sharing this with my college friend that came over the other night. I was sharing with him. It was a blessing and a curse because he exposed me or educated me on everything that I know now, all of the shit to look out for. Like, you can't pull no motherfucking game on me. You just can't. And I've seen it all through him. But the curse was, he started making me paranoid about everybody. Like, it was difficult for me to see the good in anybody. So whenever somebody was trying to come up to me to talk to me, or showing that they were interested, or somebody I was interested in, I was always wondering, like, well, what's that backstory? Because this particular guy, Leslie, he went to sex parties. He went to the bathhouse. He'd go to the park in the middle of the night cruising with strangers. I mean, he did it all. He was on the number line. So he had me scared to death. And so because of this guy, Leslie, I also knew that there were times that he practiced safe sex, and there were times that he didn't. He would say to me, he would confide in me, because I would ask him, I'm like, well, do you tell people that you're positive? And I believe, Craig in 2017 believes that it's everybody's responsibility. The person that's living with the virus and the person that's negative. It is your responsibility to ask the questions. No one carries the burden. No one has more of a burden. And so he used to tell me, listen, if they don't ask me if I'm positive, if they don't say, hey, are you HIV positive, I'm not telling them. He said, because a lot of times people would say, so you good? Like, if they were hooking up, they would just say, so you good? I mean, you okay? He was like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, you good? But he would not, if they didn't say, are you HIV positive, or what's your HIV status, he wouldn't volunteer it. And so there were times he would have protected sex, and there were times that he wouldn't. But he would also cruise the Morehouse College campus. And I write about this in the first book. He would drive through the Morehouse campus 2, 3, 4 in the morning, get out the car, go into a dormitory, a male dormitory, and just cruise the halls, the bathrooms. And undoubtedly, he'd find somebody to hook up with. He'd be fucking these young boys in their dorm rooms. This man was damn near 40. Okay? And so I was sharing that with my college friend. And I was saying, see, because I came out later, and because you started to experiment later, you were able to circumnavigate that kind of thing. But what he said to me, my college friend said to me, was he just got tired of the bathhouse life. He got tired of the apps. He got tired of just the hooking up, right? He said, I'm tired of it. He said, I just want one dude, like one guy. He said, is there a place where just professional black gay men can go to just meet, where it's not on some hookup level and just some old club shit? You know what I'm saying? And what I said to him, and I think I said in one of them books. If I didn't, it's on one of them podcasts, but I'm going to tell you now. Whatever it is in one of the books, because somebody emailed me and said that line changed his life. Whatever you're looking for is also looking for you. So whatever you're looking for is also looking for you. And so I told him, you can have it. But it goes back to what I was saying to you guys last week about sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to get it? You can't sacrifice your standards. You can't sacrifice your standards. You can't sacrifice your boundaries. You can't sacrifice your deal breakers because you're in a hurry. one of the penalties of being a person of substance, of quality, sometimes mean being single. Sometimes the penalty of being all of this greatness means being single, because it means you're willing to hold out for something amazing. It means you're not willing to discount what you can offer. It means you're not willing to lower the bar to let any old random basic ass get in your life. You understand what I'm saying? And so I said to him, I said, this is an amazing time for you, because you're so present. He's so present. And I actually thanked him for trusting me enough with his story, and was sharing that with me. And he was so candid. He was so candid, without shame. And so his concern was, how does he tell his sister? His sister is a few years younger than he is. And she adores him, looks up to him. And so he's just feeling like if he shares this with her, that it's going to change their relationship. He thinks that it's going to change their dynamic. And I said to him, I said, well, whatever you do, and I'm saying this to every gay person listening, be clear about this. I said to him, I said, what you have to do is when you go to her, you don't go to her asking her to accept you. I said, you go to her and make sure that you make her aware that it is a privilege that you're sharing this business with her, that you're sharing this with her, because you're not going to her for permission. I said, be clear, you are not going to her for her permission. And be clear when you tell her, I'm only sharing this with you because I respect you, because I love you, because you are my family. But not that I'm asking for your permission. And he said he was going to tell her in like the next couple of days. Life is something, I'm going to tell you. But I'm going to tell you my fear. Is connecting with somebody that's so lost, so broken, so unclear about who they are, what they want, what they need, what they offer. Like you really have, like somebody asked me last week on here, how long does it take before you really know somebody? I don't think you ever really know a motherfucker. And I'm not saying that the person you with is driving down the streets, yelling out the window, asking people if they want their dick sucked. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, you don't ever really know a motherfucker. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't have all of that going on behind me. Like, if I was with somebody, like, they ain't got that kind of shit to worry about with me. You understand? I want somebody that I ain't got to worry about that kind of shit. Like, can you imagine you in a relationship, and while you working and carrying on, you think you're in this wonderful relationship, and you just posting all on Facebook and Instagram and carrying on about how wonderful he or she is, and they just got this just this life behind them that you don't even know about. Just this a whole nother world. Like, that is terrifying. It really is. Okay. Oh, we haven't even talked about the damn podcast. How long we been on here? I forgot all about that. It is 10:02. Are we gonna talk about the podcast from today? The gun violence in Baltimore. This was supposed to be a quick conversation about that so that I could move on. We could always talk about the podcast tomorrow, but I don't mind if y'all got. Okay, so we're gonna discuss the podcast later. Is that what we're doing? So, well, who said Loretta? No, what? Girl, I need full sentences. She put no. She putting closed-ended answers. No, what? No, we not talking about it. Loretta saying, okay, wait and talk about it tomorrow. Oh, and Kent, thank you so much for telling Robert about the books. Robert messaged me and said he was going to be ordering the books and that you had told him about it and you had told him about the podcast. So thank you. See, caring is sharing. So I appreciate all of you guys who tell your friends and your people, your network about the books and the podcast and this Facebook Live. Okay, so we're going to talk about the podcast tomorrow. Okay, yeah, so we'll talk about the podcast tomorrow because I know some of y'all probably didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. So my college friend ended up buying the book because you know I keep some in the closet over there. So he said, now listen, I got to get this book. Oh, Bianca, you got your books? Perfect. Yeah, I made sure that you were going to get them today. Bianca, would you do me a favor and post a picture on your social media, please? Caring and sharing. Hi, Michael. I understand that, Kent. I do. Marika, are you still in here? Where you at? Her Obama phone may have gone out, though. I actually was trying to say that with a straight face. But yeah, so he just kept saying to me the entire time when we were sitting here, he said, it was fortuitous that I ran into you in that Trader Joe's. He said, God has a way of just showing up and giving you what you need. And he was just like, because I mean, it ain't no other reason but God that I ran into you in there. And that made me feel really good. Because for me, it's just another confirmation that I'm on course, that I'm doing the work. You know what I'm saying? That because I haven't seen or talked to that boy since college, and we graduated college in '98. And we weren't friends in college. Like, I knew his face, but like I told you, I didn't even know his name in the store. He knew my name, though. But we had a lot of mutual friends. And because I've written books, I'm sure. Well, he knew my name from college, too. I'm just really bad with names. But I'm sure, well, he knew I had written a book because he did say that. He said, I had seen, like, pieces, about you, on Facebook and stuff like that. But he was just saying that he's kind of in and out of Facebook. Like, he's not on there a lot. So, when he ran into me, he was just like, oh my God, there's Craig. And what's interesting is, remember the aggression piece that I was talking about when I said he was really aggressive felt like really aggressive with the students. He was really angry that they weren't picking up the little black students. Well, I was sharing with him a friend of mine from high school, a guy that I went to high school with. Carla, you talking about you got the book for a couple of years. Girl, you only got the first one. You need the second one. So I went to high school with this guy who was really aggressive in high school. And he used to fight and shit a lot. Never knew he was gay. And so when I came back from California to the East Coast, I went home to Maryland for a little while. I talked to you guys about that. Because at the time, I had just released the books, and so I wasn't able to afford to have a place, print books, travel from city to city on a book tour, and live. So I went home to Maryland. And the reason I'm slipping that in there in this other story, because I'm just taking a little detour. But the reason I'm slipping that in there is because, sometimes home can be good for you. I'm going to say it again. Home can be good for you. But see, on the surface, a lot of times we look at situations because like we have to go back home or whatever it is. We look at it as a setback, as just a setback. As if there are other benefits too. And so for me, going home allowed me to get grounded with my family. My great nieces and nephews were really young, and they didn't really know me a lot because I had never lived at home while they were growing up and stuff. The same nieces and nephews that you guys met the other week when I dropped my mom off at home. Like when they were babies and 2 and 3, like they were looking at me like, who the fuck is this? Like whenever I came home, because I would only go home like once or twice a year. And then my mom, she would come here and visit and stuff before she moved to Georgia. But I would only be home for like 2 or 3 days. And like by the time they were starting to warm up to me, my nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, it'd be time for me to fly out again. And so it was just like, who is this nigga coming in town? So being at home allowed me to build a relationship with them. And like I said, it served a double purpose because it allowed me to be home and just kind of regroup. And so I'm at home and I'm going out to a gay club. This was like 5 years ago. And so, because I don't really do the clubs a lot. So don't be thinking you're going to run into me in a club somewhere. You'll run into me in a grocery store or a restaurant before you run into me at a club. So, and not anything's wrong with the club. I always got to qualify everything because there's always a skeptic and they say, well, what's wrong with the club? I'm not saying that. I had my time in my 20s and 30s. I'm 41. So that just ain't my thing. I've just made room for the other people to get their time. Amen. So I'm walking to the club. We had just parked, me and one of my friends, and we walking up. And I see the guy from high school. He's standing outside the club. And I'm looking like, what the fuck he doing out here? Because like I said, I never knew him to be gay. When we left high school, he went to college. He got married to the girl he was in college with or whatever. They had kids. And I'm walking past him, and he's like, what's up, Craig? Just as he wasn't trying to hide, he wasn't trying to duck, he wasn't trying to dodge. And I was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, not much. Now, mind you, he had messaged me several months before on Facebook and said, hey, what's up, Craig? He said, I want to talk to you about some business. He said, so I want to hit you up. And I said, okay, that's cool. So I sent him my number and told him, we could talk. Let me know. Well, he never followed up. So I thought, because I just released my first book, I thought he was just trying to find out how to write a book and what he needed to do and whatever. So when I ran into him that day at the club, ding, 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 oh, this man is gay. So he ended up calling me and we ended up hanging out. He gave me his whole story about how when we were in high school, he was, Alicia, we decided to talk about the podcast tomorrow because they're more entrenched in what I'm talking about now. And then Marika, she ain't even in here either. Either her phone and died. So we'll come back to the podcast tomorrow. So he and I started building a friendship when I was home. And so he told me that in high school, he was having a lot of aggression. And he realized that a lot of the fighting and stuff that he was doing was because he had all this pent-up aggression around his sexuality. And he didn't really know what to do with it. See, this is the other thing that a lot of people need to understand. Little boys that identify as gay, that don't fit the typical mold, the stereotypical mold, he's not feminine, nobody suspects him of being gay, they sometimes struggle with their sexuality even more than, let's say, a really feminine boy. Because everything that they know about being gay is really soft, really feminine, and da-da-da-da. And so if they don't fit that mold when they see themselves, they sometimes struggle with it even harder. And so I never would have suspected this boy was gay in college. Like I said, he went and got married, had children. Got to the point, he told me that he was actually fucking around with guys when we were in high school. So, of course, I wanted to know who he was fucking with in high school. So fast forward, he tells me that he got married, had children, really couldn't contain the feelings anymore, right? Because I'm going to tell you, after you start suppressing them feelings, something about the age 28, you can't really move past 28 without experimenting at some point. There's something about 28. It's almost like your body just explodes and you just can't hold it no more. And you got to have an experience. So he fucking around. He married, got kids, and he fucking around. Got so bad that he was so clever with it. Like, the dude that he was fucking with, he was in a full-on relationship with a man, right? The guy knew he was married. He saved the guy's name as a woman's name. Because he was just that paranoid. Because I guess their text conversations and stuff were sometimes sexual. And in his words to me were, he would have rathered his wife find, if she was going to find the text messages, he would have rather that it looked like it was coming from a woman, that he was having an affair with a woman and not a man. So he saved the guy's name as a woman. No, he wouldn't tell me who he was fucking around with in high school, but I was pressing. And so, oh, no, I'm lying. I think he did tell me one guy, but that was because one of them I already knew he was, yeah. He did tell me one guy. So he saved the guy's number as a woman's name. And the wife found it. And so she thought he was having an affair with a woman. And so he was going to let her believe it. And then he was like, this is my opportunity to tell her, how are you doing? So he went on and told her, right? No. I'm lying. I'm making shit up. He let her believe that it was a woman. And he said he was going to go ahead and tell her, but he ended up not telling her. He was going to tell her that, okay, listen, it's really not a man. It's really not a woman. It's a man. But he didn't. Well, let me tell you what this sister did. She hired a private investigator. This shit, I can't make this shit up. I was just letting y'all stew on that for a second. She hired a private investigator, and that's how she found out that he was fucking around with a man. The private investigator followed them around, had pictures and everything of them having lunch, going into hotels, just the whole 9 yards. And it was to the point that she put all her ducks in a row. And she slapped his ass with some divorce papers. And not only did she say she wanted the house and that she wanted like this ridiculous amount of alimony and child support, but it was something else that was crazy. Like, I think she wanted him to sign over his pension. It was something real crazy, right? And he was petrified. But luck would have it for him. He ended up with an attorney that told him, you need to just man up. He said, because he was going to just acquiesce. I done gave you about 3 words tonight. Acquiesce. I gave you fortuitous. I gave you under the auspices. I've given you a few words. I hope y'all writing these down. So anyway, he happened to have an attorney that said, listen, you need to fess up. You need to be a man about this. And you need to fight this. She ain't got no rights to your, I think she wanted like his pen. It was something ridiculous that she was not entitled to. But she was saying she wanted it because she, basically she was hurt. She was scorned. So it was almost like she was just trying to go for the jugular, right? And so the attorney said, you need to fight. And then what ended up happening was the judge that they had was gay, a gay man. And he wasn't going for all of that stuff that she was trying to get. So then they ended up having shared custody and, it was more of a fair settlement. So fast forward, because you never know how a person will end up being in your life or being important in your life. So fast forward, when I started dealing with Rocky, now this is the guy that I dealt with in my second book that was married. When I started dealing with Rocky, my high school friend actually was kind of like guiding me through that because he's like, Craig, I understand the walk that he's walking and you can't push him. Is based on everything I've seen and everything that I've known about what you're telling me, he really is trying, but you have got to give him the space to make the decision to leave his wife on his own. Not because I'm pushing, not because I'm pressuring. And so that's when I kind of like step back. But I just think that there's so many layers to this thing when we talk about sexuality and the sexual component. And we're not always going to talk about that. But it just happened to happen to me over the weekend in Trader Joe's. I'm minding my business trying to get my vegan shit together, right? And this guy stops me. So I had an amazing weekend until today. This bitch then came through here and fucked up my lights, my power. I can't even watch TV. So hopefully tomorrow shit is better. Any questions, any comments? Are we all at peace? Is everybody subscribed to the podcast? If you haven't listened to the one today, listen to it. I know we're just on this one today. We were talking about the gun violence in Baltimore and the ceasefire that was supposed to happen for 72 hours that only lasted for 41 before 2 people got shot. But we actually talk about even though it's a heavy subject, we actually have a good time with it. So listen to it. So it's not. If I ever do a podcast and I don't love it, I'm not going to put it out there. So, I mean, I want you to listen to all of them. So if there's some ones from the past that you haven't listened to, definitely listen to those. The one that's coming up next week, it's a conversation with me and my Aunt Gloria. Now, if you think my mother is funny, if you miss this one next week, I'm telling you, you playing yourself. My Aunt Gloria is hilarious. Ghetto and funny. Yeah, all that conversation about lead. Yes, all of this, none of this would have happened if I wasn't going vegan because I don't typically shop in Trader Joe's. So I would have never been, that's why he kept saying this is so fortuitous that I ran into you because I wouldn't have been in Trader Joe's. The double standard, yeah. Danielle called me earlier today. Yes, all of this happened for real, David. Like, it's crazy. And that's what I'm saying. Just think of all of the people that are quietly suffering. All of the people that are quietly grieving and carrying this stuff because they just don't think that they can live their truth. But yeah, that Negro kept talking about the lead poison. I'm like, okay, so you really, we ain't about to talk about the podcast, so we're going to talk about it tomorrow. But, so next Monday, my Aunt Gloria, she lives in Baltimore. She and I are talking on there, and it's hilarious. So we talk about just the culture in Baltimore, period. But we also talk about her getting older, being celibate. We talk about her hustle, because she got a hustle going up there. She clips coupons, right? I'm just going to give you a little bit. She clips coupons. She goes to the store, buys the stuff, and then she resells it from her house. So she making money off of it. So some of the stuff she getting for free because she clipping these coupons and doubling and tripling the coupons. And then she sells the shit. That's like her extra income. Yes, if you can always suggest podcast suggestions. Look at the information up here in the caption. There's a link up there where I say if you have a suggestion or whatever for a podcast, email it. It's so much to say podcast at gmail.com, but it's up there. Robert, if you're ready to buy them books, send that money through PayPal. Use that so much to say podcast at Gmail email. Carla, if you're ready to buy that second book, you go ahead and send your little $20. I won't even charge you for the little shipping. Send your little $20 through there. So much to say podcast at Gmail. But Robert, if you're buying both of the books, just send $36. I will not charge you the shipping. That'll make both of the books $18. You will send it to the so much to say podcast at Gmail. Do you think you will in your next book talk about your Facebook viewers and how we... Alicia said, does she think that I'll, in my next book, if I'll talk about my Facebook viewers and how we connect with you on a nightly basis? Alicia, you something else, girl. Exactly. I'm coming to that in a second, Brent. Alicia, to answer your question, no, because this next book, and I'm going to tell you what I am about to start doing. I'm about to start recording the audio version of the second book because I haven't done it, and I've been getting quite a few emails lately about that. And not just because some of y'all are lazy to read, but but because one of the people in particular who emailed me is visually impaired. And so he listens, and he's been asking me, so I need to do it. But no, because remember, this third book, I'm in love with this third book. And I'm going to tell you, like, doing these have kind of made me comfortable with releasing this third book. But as I've been writing it, as much as I adore it, and as much as I love it, I see my growth as a writer in this book. I see my growth as a writer in the second book. Like, I get so many compliments about the first book, but when I look at the second book, I'm like, I have really grown as a writer in the second book. But in this third book, the growth has just been exponential. And so, but my concern about putting out this third book is that, like I was telling you guys last week, it's not a novel. It's not like a part three, even though it is my life, because I'm giving you stories just like I'm giving you on here, and I'm giving you the lessons, but I'm writing it in this book. And so, because I've been doing these, this has been kind of confirmation for me that you guys will receive this third book. Because I was kind of concerned that people would be like, "Oh, this ain't like the other two." You know how y'all do about Mary J. Blige and her My Life album. Y'all will not let that woman record another album without saying, "Well, it ain't really like my life." So, but I think you guys are going to appreciate it because it is quotes. It opens with each chapter opens with an original quote. I do pull stories from my life, like this Trader Joe's story could very well end up in a book. Not that it will, but I'm just saying. Yeah, exponential, that's another word. But I'm going to give you real life scenarios and situations that I've encountered, and I'm going to give you the life lessons that I've gotten in the book. So this book is called Book of Jewels, but it's more of a personal development book. It's one of those books that's going to enrich you. It's going to be one of those books that you might read now, and then you pick it up in the next year and read that shit again because it's going to hit you in a different way because your experiences are different. So yeah, it's going to be that kind of thing. Seemed like it was something else about to say. Oh, somebody asked me, Brent asked me something. Tiffany, I don't know when that book is going to come out because I'm not even finished writing it. I said I was going to be done writing it at the end of this year, but we're now at September. But Brent has said I have people in my family drinking themselves to death because they're not living their truth. And that is the case for a lot of people, and not just gay people or people who are in the LGBTQ community. That's for people who aren't living their life's passion either. That's people who go to a job that they hate, but they're doing it because they're tied to a mortgage, or they're tied to a college tuition, or they're in marriages that they don't want to be in. They're in it for the perception, or because the husband makes great money, or you know what I'm saying? Like whatever. Like you'll drive yourself crazy. You'll eat yourself to death. You'll drink yourself to death. You'll have a nervous breakdown. Let that shit go. Let that shit go. It's like there's a story in my first book, in Words Never Spoken, about my cousin Lisa. And my cousin Lisa had a nervous breakdown many years ago. And some of my family, it's popular belief in my family that she had this nervous breakdown behind a guy. And you read that part already, Kent? Yeah. And so she was dating this guy. It was like a high school sweetheart. My cousin was a virgin when she met him. And so you know what it's like when you have that first sexual experience and it's right. That person generally always has a space in your heart, a place in your heart. So that was her first love. Well, this Negro was cheating. And my cousins were working with Lisa's boyfriend. They were all working at like this KFC, this Kentucky Fried Chicken in Baltimore. Like high school jobs, right? And they were working with him, and they knew that he was cheating. And they used to try to tell Lisa, girl, he cheating, da-da-da-da. And she didn't want to believe it. Well, then even when she found out that he was cheating, supposedly they were going to work it out. And that's when he proposed. Because I think that was his way of trying to keep her from breaking it off or whatever. Like he proposed to kind of shut her up. And then she ended up pregnant and had this baby. And I think she had the baby to try to keep him or to try to get the relationship on track. You know how we do. And so I'm trying to read y'all stuff. Tiffany, I'm trying to read this long ass message you just sent. Um, so she had the baby because I felt it was like her way of trying to keep him. Well, they ultimately broke up anyway. They ended up breaking up. He ended up marrying the girl that he was cheating with or some shit, right? So shortly thereafter, my cousin had this nervous breakdown. And so several of my cousins, like, they stopped fucking with the guy, like they weren't friends with him no more. Like, shit just unraveled, and just he just was kind of like ostracized and ousted from our family. And so then she went on in and out of like these psych wards and shit. She was on medication. She's still on medication. She's supposed to be on medication for the rest of her life. But you know, like when a person, if you know anything about mental illness, when a person comes off their medication, a lot of times they'll come off their medication because they think they're well, because the medication is helping. And then they'll come off because they feeling fine. Well, that's her. So she'll come off the medication and shit. And she's just never been the same. She was my favorite cousin. Like, she was the first person in my family to go to college and graduated. She was putting herself through college. She was working full time. And then she had this situation with this boyfriend. And so I said to my cousin in particular, who loved and adored her too. Like, my cousin Lisa was the light. She was like that family member, like whenever y'all had family reunions or cookouts and everything, all of the cousins and everybody wanted to sit at the table with her because she was just so effervescent. There's a word. She was so just lively and just bright and just funny and just whatever. And so when she had this nervous breakdown, she distanced herself from the family because, like I said, she was in and out of these psych wards. And she would just disappear. She'd be living on another side of town and nobody had never heard from her and just whatever. And then she'd pop up sometime like, hey, and you looking at her like, because she'd be looking all starry in the eyes. And you knew she wasn't really on her medication. And so my cousin was like, my other cousin was like, I can't fuck with him anymore because he felt like he damaged her. And I remember saying to my cousin, I said, you know, that's really, as a kid, I always thought that was why she had this nervous breakdown too. But as an adult, I started to look at it differently when I was writing the first book. And I said to my cousin, I said, well, you know, it's really unfair to charge him with what happened to her because she was taking on a lot. She was in college full-time, paying her own way. She was working full-time. She was in that tumultuous relationship. So all of those things could have led to that breakdown. You know what I'm saying? It was just too much on her. She was overstressed. So you can't just say it was because of him and what happened in that relationship. Because people go in and out of relationships all the time, devastating relationships. And that's why when they say, you know, someone has gone through the same thing you've been through, but they lost their mind, you got to be grateful because it could have been you. And what I took away from that relationship as well was she lost her magic with him. She lost her magic. Like, she didn't know who she was. Like, she was so enamored by him. And in the book I say, a man is only interested if you're interesting. So don't lose your zeal. Don't lose your zest. Don't lose your life. Don't give up your life and your friends and your career and your business. Because no man has ever left a person because a person was driven, because a person had a life of their own. You understand what I'm saying? A man is only interested if you're interesting. No man wants to be with a person, man or woman, that's sitting at home waiting for him every single time he come home. A man needs to miss you a little bit. They need to know that you about your business, that you doing your thing. And see, she would forego her stuff. She was always there. You know, good luck. And I'm not saying play no games and all that kind of shit. But what I'm saying is, if somebody came into my life right now, I can't curtail what I do. I'm not going to stop doing my live videos and shit because we sitting here watching a movie or what. You know what I'm saying? There will be certain things that I'm definitely going to change. But what I'm saying is, there might be some nights that I can't come and do this. But I'm not going to stop doing the things that make me happy just because I'm now in a relationship, is what I'm getting at. And then, quite possibly, she could have had a chemical imbalance already. You're right. But I think that's all I have to say for tonight. I'm going to look through here and see if there are any other questions or comments. Any other questions or comments? Tanika said that's exactly what came to mind. She lost herself. You know when you're slipping too, and every day a small piece chips away until there's no recollection of who and what you were. Yes, indeed. I'm going to read that again because somebody need to hear that. Tanika says she lost herself. You know when you're slipping too. I'm sorry. She lost herself. You know when you're slipping too. And every day a small piece chips away until there's no recollection of who and what you were. That's true. That is true. Like, you can't lose yourself. Like, you got to still be the person that they fell in love with. Like, you got to still be great. You got to still be active. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you work out, like if you're a person that go to the gym and you work out and you have girls' night with your girls, or you take trips with your homeboys, like you go to the cabin and shit, and it's just singles. It's just, I mean, not singles, but it's just you and the guys. Keep up your traditions. Remember what I told you about the woman at IBM that I work with? She encouraged her husband to take trips without her. You got to have a life outside of your relationship, because then if and when the relationship comes to an end, you don't know what the fuck you used to do before. Because you done gave up your life. And every relationship comes to an end. And not just because somebody's going to cheat or because you're going to break up, but because we all die, okay? So even if you live in a relationship for 30, 40 years, bitch, somebody got to die. Okay, so they're going to all come to an end. So you got to be able to maintain. Right, and don't lose your friends. Don't forget your friends, because don't come calling me once the relationship is over, because I ain't going to remember you. But on that note, thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully this bitch get my lights back on. This Irma girl. This Irma. Bye, people.